question. I'm Korean American like you are, and Korean Japanese have had such a different experience than Korean Americans have had. And when I have met so many Korean Japanese people, their lives are really different. Their personalities are frankly very different. So that was interesting for me. For those of you who don't know, there are 3 different kinds of Koreans in Japan today. And they have different immigration legal statuses. So you have the North Korean Japanese. So they have a card, and they can't travel outside of Japan. They could occasionally visit North Korea with permission. These are 4th generation people. And because North Korea and Japan don't have a diplomatic relationship, they're not recognized as a nation that they have a relationship with. So these people can't travel. They have a card. And they go to schools from kindergarten, very often to university level in Japan. But if you go to these North Korean schools, you'll see photographs of Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il, and they'll have a syllabus that's approved by the North Korean government. That's today. So imagine, that's very different than a Korean American from LA versus a Korean American from Vermont. Very different. The other Korean Japanese that I've met are Korean Japanese who have South Korean passports. And that's the majority of this group at this point. And they have the red South Korean passports. Some of them have never been to South Korea. And they may be 4th generation Korean Japanese. And they can travel because South Korea and Japan have a diplomatic relationship. The other group are the Korean Japanese who have Japanese legal citizenship. And they have legal citizenship, but it's really difficult to get this thing. It's like joining a very important little club, because you have to know all the right people, you have to get the right letters, and also, even if you could do those things, in a way, there's a part of you that feels like perhaps you're betraying your community by becoming something that didn't want you. So you have these 3 different groups. So writing about these people was really different than using my personal experiences. That said, when I did interview them, again, they had many things that we might have in common, you and I. So one of the things that is in this book that I had to write about was the role of Christianity. So many of these characters have Christian names. And it's because Christianity, for whatever we may think about colonialism and moral imperialism, was an incredibly important force for Koreans in the 20th century, and also in the history of the resistance against colonialism. So that was a very important thread that I had to put in there. And in that sense, my grandfather was a Presbyterian minister, and he was a headmaster of a school in Busan. And in this school, he took care of orphan boys who came from Japan after Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So when they lost their parents, they returned to South Korea, and they returned to Busan, and they stayed in my grandfather's orphanage. So I had that history that I knew about. It's not in the book, but it was very important for me to consider that there's always been an exchange between Japan and Korea. It's really almost impossible to know anything about Korea in the 20th century without thinking about the role of Japan in terms of its colonial history, and Christianity in terms of its spiritual history and political history. So I put those things in there. I hope that